In the 1980s and 90s, a new kind of cultural icon burst onto the American scene. First through slang-heavy conversations in shopping malls and high school hallways, then through TV screens, radio airwaves, and movie theaters, and eventually in the speech patterns of people far beyond her native turf. She was the Valley Girl, young, stylish, and seemingly oblivious to the world outside her social circle. With her bleached blonde hair, designer labels, and compulsive attachment to phrases like, "Oh my God," "like totally," and "gag me with a spoon," she quickly became both a pop culture sensation and an easy target for ridicule. She wasn't just a girl from the Valley, she was the girl from the Valley. A shorthand for a specific brand of affluent, fashion-obsessed, mall-haunting teenager from the San Fernando Valley in suburban Los Angeles. Though fictionalized and exaggerated in film and television, her image left an indelible mark on American culture, lingering long after her heyday and evolving into an archetype that refuses to fade. At the heart of the Valley Girl persona was a distinct vocal style that set her apart from the rest of the country. This speech pattern, casual, animated, and steeped in filler words, came to be known as Valspeak. Her voice was often breathy and pitched high, with a rhythm that veered toward sing-songy. Uptalk became her trademark, declarative sentences transformed into questions, not necessarily to express uncertainty, but to signal a desire for connection or confirmation. Her sentences were strung together like a daisy chain, bursting with emotion and punctuated by dramatic pauses and hand gestures. Valspeak wasn't just about how she sounded, it was an entire performance, a linguistic stage she carried with her wherever she went. The Valley Girl stereotype crystallized around a particular socioeconomic class, upper-middle-class white girls living in suburban comfort, often with credit cards courtesy of generous parents and wardrobes built around whatever was hot at the mall that month. She wasn't portrayed as deep or intellectual. Quite the opposite. She was often mocked as materialistic, shallow, and ditzy, the kind of girl who might skip studying to tan by the pool or spend hours agonizing over whether to buy suede boots or patent leather heels. Yet despite the parody, there was something magnetic about her. She was confident, socially savvy, and never at a loss for words, even if half those words were like. Valspeak wasn't merely a linguistic quirk. It was and remains a real, evolving dialect, born at the crossroads of California English, teenage innovation, and media amplification. Linguists call this kind of language use a sociolect, a style of speech tied to a specific social group. In this case, it was the adolescent girls of the San Fernando Valley who developed and refined it, filtering mainstream English through a local, gendered, and generational lens. What began as a regional speech pattern soon became a cultural phenomenon, aided by movies like Valley Girl, 1983, and Clueless, 1995, as well as Frank Zappa's 1982 satirical song Valley Girl, which helped catapult the dialect into national consciousness. Ironically, many of the linguistic features that defined Valspeak weren't actually invented in the Valley. Words like and so had been used elsewhere in similar ways, but it was the Valley Girls who made them iconic. One of Valspeak's most defining features is the use of the quotative be-like, a now widespread construction in which be-like introduces either imagined or paraphrased speech. Instead of saying, "She said I can't believe it," a Valley Girl would say, "She was like, I can't even." This kind of phrasing isn't just filler. It's a way of expressing tone, emotion, and attitude all at once. The Valley Girl turned like into a verbal Swiss Army knife, a pause button, a tone softener, a quote introducer, and a signal that what followed was more vibe than verbatim. She wielded it with such casual mastery that even those who rolled their eyes at her speech eventually found themselves using the same words, the same cadence. Beyond the quotatives and the filler words, Valspeak was also about performance, holding the conversational floor through tone and rhythm. This often meant keeping sentences open-ended, creating an invitation for validation or at least acknowledgement. That signature uptalk wasn't about not knowing what you were saying, it was about making sure the other person was still with you. In a world where girls were often dismissed or talked over, this subtle control of dialogue was its own form of power. She might have sounded unsure, but she was running the show. Ironically, the entire Valley Girl phenomenon went mainstream not through heartfelt documentaries or news reports, but via a satirical rock song. In 1982, the eccentric musical genius Frank Zappa released Valley Girl, a track that featured his teenage daughter Moon Unit Zappa, speaking in an exaggerated, nasal, and uptalk-heavy accent, while rattling off a laundry list of absurd, superficial concerns. Her monologue was a parody of the stereotypical teen girl from the San Fernando Valley. giggly, ditzy, and hopelessly materialistic. She name-dropped places like Encino, gushed about shopping trips, squealed about cute boys, and delivered now iconic lines like, "Oh my God," and "Gag me with a spoon." Zappa intended the song as a critique, a sarcastic jab at what he saw as the vapidness of American consumer culture. But to his surprise, and arguably his dismay, the public didn't hear it as a joke. Instead, they embraced it. The song was a commercial success, and far from diminishing the Valley Girl image, it launched it into the pop culture stratosphere. Suddenly, this caricature of a privileged LA teen wasn't just a punchline. It became a trend to emulate. Hollywood, always quick to spot a cultural moment worth capitalizing on, dove headfirst into the Valley with scripts and casting calls. Just a year later, in 1983, the movie Valley Girl hit theaters, starring Nicolas Cage as a Hollywood punk, and Deborah Foreman as the quintessential Valley Girl, torn between her pastel world and his leather jacket rebellion. The film wasn't just a teen romance. It was a showcase of mall culture, big hair, and the irresistible draw of bubbly confidence, wrapped in lip gloss and slang. Throughout the 80s and 90s, the Valley Girl identity became a go-to trope for television and film, embedded in characters who were visually stunning, socially savvy, and often underestimated. TV shows like Sweet Valley High leaned into the twin sister dynamic, beautiful blondes navigating high school drama with designer clothes and designer problems. The image solidified, replicated, and eventually became self-sustaining. By 1995, the Valley Girl had reached her cultural peak with the release of Clueless, a film that managed to parody and celebrate the stereotype all at once. Alicia Silverstone's portrayal of Cher Horowitz wasn't just a character. She was a cultural meteor. Cher was stylish and naive, sure, but also generous, clever, and incredibly persuasive. She wasn't dumb, just surrounded by excess and eager to do good with it. Behind her yellow plaid skirts and color-coded closet was someone capable of crafting airtight arguments, quoting literary classics, and manipulating social ecosystems with uncanny precision. Her language was inflected with all the recognizable Valley hallmarks, but it carried intention and command. Her power didn't lie in hiding her Valleyness, but in owning it. The idea that you could be fashionable and feminist, flighty and fierce, changed the narrative. Cher was proof that you could talk like a Valley Girl and still be taken seriously, eventually. Still, despite the charisma of these characters and the massive pop cultural impact they had, the Valley Girl voice remained polarizing. Critics labeled it grating, infantile, and idiotic. The Uptalk, the rising intonation that made every statement sound like a question, and the vocal fry, the creaky, low-pitched end-of-sentence growl, became audio red flags to certain ears. These speech patterns, heavily associated with young women, were often seen as signs of weakness or indecisiveness. But linguists weren't convinced. Researchers began studying these phenomena not as trends to be ridiculed, but as meaningful tools of communication. Uptalk, for example, turned out to be useful for signaling that a speaker wasn't finished yet, holding the conversational floor. It could also be used for soft confirmation, asking without directly asking, something that speakers, regardless of gender, found useful in informal, collaborative dialogue. Vocal fry, too, was re-examined. Some researchers suggested it added gravitas or casual authority to speech, though its reception still varied depending on who was speaking and how they looked. Among all the features of Valspeak, no word drew more ire or more widespread usage than like. It was everywhere. People mocked it, counted it, tried to scrub it from their vocabulary. But no matter how many think pieces or college essays decried its spread, like held its ground. And for good reason. As linguist Alexandra Darcy and others pointed out, like isn't just lazy filler. It's a surprisingly versatile linguistic tool. It can introduce quotations or paraphrase thoughts, and I was like, soften statements to be more polite or collaborative, express approximation, it was like 5 miles, or act as a placeholder while the speaker thinks. What's more, these uses follow surprisingly consistent rules even if they're applied unconsciously. The fixation on like as a problem wasn't really about the word, it was about who was using it, young women. And more specifically, young women who sounded girly, spoiled, and superficial. But the truth is, like didn't originate in the Valley. And its rise wasn't a linguistic accident. It was part of a larger evolution in American English. And the Valley Girl just happened to make it visible. Beneath the bleached blonde hair, oversized sunglasses, and ritualistic mall pilgrimages, the Valley Girl embodied much more than a passing fashion trend or a convenient stereotype. She became a symbol of how language, gender, and class intersect in the way society perceives and polices identity. What began as a comic exaggeration of teenage girls from California's San Fernando Valley soon morphed into a cultural scapegoat. The Valley Girl voice, marked by breathy tones, rising inflections, and a heavy reliance on words like, totally, and whatever, was widely dismissed as superficial, silly, and dumb. But this dismissal was rarely just about language. Beneath the surface, it revealed deeper prejudices. The speech patterns mocked in the Valley Girl weren't ridiculed in isolation. They were ridiculed because they came from young women, particularly affluent white suburban ones. When women spoke with uptalk or vocal fry, their speech was called annoying, insecure, or unserious. Yet when men used similar patterns, often in corporate or public speaking contexts, they were described as innovative, persuasive, or conversationally dominant. What was considered weakness in women became strategy in men. Despite all the ridicule, the Valley Girl's way of speaking didn't disappear. In fact, it expanded far beyond the Valley. What once felt confined to Encino or Sherman Oaks has become part of a much broader national, and even global, voice. Valspeak spread through television, movies, music, and later, the internet. The reality television boom of the early 2000s, with shows like The Simple Life and Laguna Beach, propelled the accent into millions of households. Social media influencers and YouTubers adopted its rhythm and vocabulary, consciously or not, and helped normalize its features among younger generations. Today, the voice, a modern evolution of Valspeak, is ubiquitous. You can hear it on TikTok and podcast ads, in conversations on college campuses in Boston, Chicago, or Austin. It's the vocal currency of influencers, content creators, lifestyle coaches, and even journalists. And while it still gets mocked, it is undeniably everywhere. The Valley Girl's legacy in pop culture is long and complicated. She's been played for laughs, like in the Californian skits on Saturday Night Live, where over-the-top freeway directions and absurd intonation are the punchline. She's been spun into a symbol of unexpected capability, like Elle Woods in Legally Blonde, a character who channels her Valley charm into legal brilliance. She's been portrayed as a symptom of cultural rot in films like The Bling Ring, where obsession with status and celebrity turns criminal. Across all these depictions, one thing remains constant. The Valley Girl never really disappears. She just reinvents herself, sometimes as a satire, other times as an aspiration. For all her eye rolls and vocal fry, the Valley Girl has proven resilient. She has survived decades of ridicule, parody, and cultural hand-wringing. And more importantly, she's outlived her critics. Far from fading, her speech patterns have infiltrated mainstream American English, changing the way people of all genders and ages speak, often without realizing it. Words she helped popularize, like literally, whatever, I'm like, and OMG, have become everyday expressions. The uptalk and like-filled sentences that once symbolized immaturity are now used by CEOs, newscasters, and university professors. She may have started out as a joke, a linguistic punching bag for everything wrong with consumerism and teen culture. But the Valley Girl ended up altering the way language is used, perceived, and performed in America. Her voice, once mocked as vapid, proved to be a vehicle for influence. Speaking like a Valley Girl didn't just sound cool, it reshaped our linguistic norms. Whether we like it or not, her voice is now part of our own. Totally.
Come along, let's sing, where the joy will bring. Tune into the beat, feel the magic, it's true. Channel 199X, we're here just for you, for you.